Welcome back to Spiritual Summaries. As we progress in our comprehensive journey through the Bible, today we conclude our exploration of Leviticus, the heart of the Pentateuch's legal corpus. Having delved into the intricate details of ritual purity and ethical conduct from chapters 13 through 18, we're now ready to venture into the final chapters, 19 to 27. These concluding passages, often referred to as the Holiness Code, call upon the Israelites to cultivate a life of sanctity in both their spiritual rituals and daily conduct. It's a fitting capstone to a book that challenges us to consider how ancient laws can inform modern living. As you've come to expect, we're meticulously unpacking these chapters using the King James Version, enriching your understanding with expert commentary and vivid visuals that bring the sacred words to life. From divine ordinances to the practicalities of holiness, join us as we uncover the timeless wisdom of these biblical texts. So, sit back, relax, and prepare for a transformative session as we decode the rich symbolism and profound teachings of Leviticus's final chapters. Let's get started. Chapter 19, the Call to Holiness. In this chapter, the narrative presents a powerful call to holiness, outlining how the Israelites are to live as a people set apart. This chapter serves as a cornerstone of the Holiness Code, beginning with the Lord's commandment to Moses to instruct the entire Israelite community to be holy, for he is holy. The chapter weaves through a tapestry of moral, ceremonial, and civil laws, emphasizing respect for parents, keeping the Sabbath, and a litany of ethical imperatives. These range from leaving gleanings of the harvest for the poor and the sojourner, to not stealing, dealing falsely, or lying. It's an assertion of social justice and compassion rooted in divine ordinance. Idolatry is strictly forbidden, and reverence for God is interwoven with practical directives for just living. The people are admonished to not turn to mediums or necromancers, but to maintain purity in their faith. Leviticus 19 also includes the seminal commandment to love your neighbor as yourself, a maxim that becomes central to the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament. It encapsulates the chapter's theme of enacting God's holiness in every aspect of daily life, binding the community in a shared pursuit of ethical and spiritual excellence. As we move forward, remember that these are not just ancient texts, they are a call to reflect on our actions, intentions, and the way we relate to one another and to the divine. Chapter 19 of Leviticus challenges us to consider the very essence of what it means to live a life dedicated to holiness. Chapter 20, Penalties for Transgression. Chapter 20 continues the theme of holiness and offers a somber warning. It enumerates the penalties for various transgressions, reinforcing the serious nature of God's commandments. It begins by condemning child sacrifice to Moloch, a practice abhorrent to the Lord, and promises dire consequences for such actions, setting the tone for the stringent prohibitions that follow. The chapter underscores the sanctity of life and the importance of adhering to God's laws, with capital punishment prescribed for a range of offenses from cursing one's parents to engaging in prohibited sexual relations. These harsh penalties highlight the societal values of the time and the significance placed on purity, both moral and ceremonial. In stark contrast to the earlier chapter's detailed instructions for rituals and sacrifices, Chapter 20 emphasizes the consequences of disobedience. It serves as a deterrent, seeking to maintain the integrity of the community through a clear set of boundaries. The refrain "I am the Lord your God" punctuates the text, reminding the Israelites of the covenantal relationship that underpins these laws. The expectation is clear: to be God's people is to live in a way that is markedly different from other nations, embodying a divine standard of conduct. As we reflect on Chapter 20, it compels us to grapple with the complexities of ancient law and its role in shaping a community's identity and ethical compass. The stark penalties laid out here may seem distant to our modern sensibilities, yet they echo a persistent call throughout history for a community to align its legal standards with its spiritual convictions. Chapter 21, Holiness of the Priests. In Leviticus chapter 21, the focus shifts to the priests, the spiritual leaders of Israel, and the high standards set for them. This chapter details the regulations for priests to maintain their ritual purity, a prerequisite for their sacred duties. These rules are more stringent than those for lay people, reflecting the priest's role as mediators between God and the Israelites. The chapter lays out specific requirements regarding marriage, mourning rituals, and physical blemishes that might disqualify a priest from service. For instance, priests are prohibited from marrying women who are divorced or have lived a profane life, ensuring the priestly line remains holy. Moreover, the high priest, the pinnacle of the priestly order, is held to even higher standards. He must not show public signs of mourning, such as tearing his clothes or letting his hair become unkempt, preserving the sanctity of his office even in personal grief. The high priest's marriage is also restricted to a virgin from his own people, further emphasizing the purity required for his role. Chapter 21 of Leviticus offers a window into the lives of ancient Hebrew priests, highlighting the burdens and honors of their sacred office. It reminds us that leadership in spiritual matters was never to be taken lightly and that those who lead must first exemplify the values they espouse. Chapter 22, Sacred Offerings and Holy Gifts. This chapter continues detailing the laws concerning the priests and their behavior, extending these rules to include the treatment of sacred offerings. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining holiness not only in personal conduct but also in the rituals and offerings made to God. The chapter outlines that the priests must not profane the sacred offerings of the Israelites, which they dedicate to the Lord, by allowing the unfit, whether through impurity or improper status, to partake in them. This injunction underscores the belief that God's gifts are holy and that great care must be taken to ensure that only those who are clean and appropriately prepared may eat from them. It also stipulates the conditions under which an animal is considered acceptable for an offering, highlighting physical perfection as a metaphor for spiritual wholeness. The animals offered must be free from defects, reinforcing the concept that one must offer God the best, not the blemished. Chapter 22 of Leviticus serves as a reminder of the sacredness attached to offerings and the rigorous standards the Israelites were required to meet in their religious practices. It reflects a theology that sees external acts of worship as reflections of inner piety and devotion. Chapter 23, The Appointed Festivals. This chapter shifts the focus from sacrificial offerings to the sacred times of the Israelite calendar, detailing the festivals that are to be observed as holy convocations. These festivals are not just times of celebration but also of reflection, remembrance, and community. The chapter opens with the Sabbath, the weekly day of rest that stands as a testament to God's creation and a symbol of the covenant between God and Israel. It then progresses through the annual festivals, the Passover and Festival of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of First Fruits, the Feast of Weeks, later known as Pentecost, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Booths, or Tabernacles. Each festival is described with instructions for how it is to be observed, from the sacrifices to be offered to the prohibitions on work. These festivals mark the agricultural year in Israel's history, serving as communal anchors that connect the present with the past and the divine. This chapter underscores the rhythm of religious and communal life in ancient Israel, integrating social, agricultural, historical, and theological themes into the fabric of daily life, ensuring that every aspect of existence was touched by the sacred. Chapter 24, The Sanctuary's Oil and Bread, Blasphemy and Its Punishment. In this chapter of Leviticus, we're given a closer look at the daily and weekly rituals that kept the tabernacle, and later the temple, a focal point of worship. The chapter begins with the commandment to bring pure olive oil for the lampstand, ensuring that the light burns continually, symbolizing God's eternal presence among His people. The chapter also describes the showbread, which consists of 12 loaves representing the 12 tribes of Israel, set out before the Lord as a perpetual offering. This bread is to be replaced every Sabbath, demonstrating a regular rhythm of remembrance and provision. The narrative shifts dramatically with the account of a man who blasphemes the name of the Lord. This incident leads to a clear and severe decree from God regarding blasphemy. The individual is to be stoned to death by the community, emphasizing the sanctity of God's name and the seriousness of maintaining purity in the camp. The contrast between the quiet, continuous rituals and the sudden, stark punishment for blasphemy serves as a potent reminder of the Israelites' covenant obligations, to live in a state of holiness, honoring God in both their worship and their behavior. Chapter 25, The Sabbatical Year and the Year of Jubilee. Leviticus 25 introduces the concepts of the sabbatical year and the year of Jubilee, profound practices that demonstrate a commitment to social equity and compassion within the community. Every seventh year is to be a sabbatical year, a time when the land is left to rest and rejuvenate. During this year, the Israelites are not to sow their fields or prune their vineyards. Instead, they trust in God's provision as whatever the land produces naturally is to be shared among all, including servants, laborers, and even strangers. Then, after 7 cycles of sabbatical years, the 50th year is to be observed as the year of Jubilee. It is a time of liberation and restitution. Slaves are to be freed, and properties that have been sold are to be returned to their original families. This ensures that despite the economic activities of the past decades, no family will be permanently dispossessed of their ancestral land. These cycles are a radical call to prevent the buildup of poverty and inequality. They serve as a divine check against the accumulation of wealth and power, ensuring that the economy of Israel reflects God's justice and mercy. The spirit of these ordinances extends beyond their immediate practical implications, serving as an enduring reminder of the Israelites' responsibility to create a society rooted in fairness, kindness, and respect for the divine order. Chapter 26, Blessings for Obedience and Penalties for Disobedience. This chapter sets forth a stark dichotomy between the blessings of obedience and the curses that come with disobedience. This pivotal chapter emphasizes the conditional aspects of Israel's covenant with God, detailing the rewards for compliance and the severe consequences for rebellion. The chapter begins with promises of peace, fertility, and prosperity, assuring the Israelites that if they follow God's statutes, they will live in security in the land. Rain will fall in season, the earth will yield its produce, and there will be an abundance of peace. Conversely, if the Israelites do not listen and fail to carry out all of these commandments, they will face a series of escalating punishments. These include disease, famine, defeat by enemies, and desolation of their cities. God warns of a cycle of punishment that will intensify sevenfold for continued disobedience. Ultimately, the chapter serves as a reminder of the profound covenant between God and Israel. Obedience would lead to a flourishing society under divine protection, while disobedience would lead to a breakdown of society and separation from God's blessings. This chapter reinforces the notion that the covenant is not only a set of laws but also a relationship that requires commitment and faithfulness to maintain the blessings of the divine presence among the people. Chapter 27. Laws regarding vows and sanctification. Leviticus 27, the final chapter in this book, outlines regulations concerning vows and the sanctification of people, animals, houses, and fields to the Lord. This chapter details the specific valuations placed on different kinds of vows and the things dedicated to God, emphasizing the sacred nature of promises made to Him. The text describes how individuals can dedicate themselves or members of their household to God through a vow, with specified redemption prices based on age and gender. It clarifies that no person dedicated to God may be redeemed, they must fulfill their vow. Similarly, any unclean animal may be redeemed by adding a fifth to its valuation, but a clean animal may not be replaced once vowed. Moreover, the chapter explains how the Israelites can consecrate their houses and fields to God, with the possibility of redemption or the transfer of sanctity. If a field of possession is sanctified to the Lord, its value is determined by the amount of seed required for it, with the price fluctuating depending on the proximity to the year of Jubilee. Chapter 27 acts as an annex to the Levitical Code, concluding the book with a focus on the integrity of one's word to God and the procedures for making and redeeming vows. It serves as a solemn reminder that what is promised to God in solemn vows carries weight and must be treated with reverence and commitment. This chapter wraps up Leviticus with a focus on the importance of fulfilling one's commitments to God, essentially underlining the overarching themes of holiness and consecration found throughout the book. And that concludes our journey through the final chapters of Leviticus. From the compassionate heart of social justice in chapter 19 to the detailed vows and dedications in chapter 27, we've seen the depth and breadth of God's instructions for a holy community. Leviticus challenges us to consider the implications of our actions, the sanctity of our promises, and the profound respect due to the sacred. As we close this book, we invite you to reflect on the themes we've encountered. How can we apply the principles of purity, ethical conduct, and dedication in our own lives? How do the ancient rituals and commands resonate with our modern spiritual practices? We hope that these summaries have not only enhanced your understanding of Leviticus but also inspired you to delve deeper into your own spiritual journey. Remember, this is just one part of our comprehensive exploration of the Bible with spiritual summaries. Stay tuned as we turn the page to the next book, where we'll continue to uncover the wisdom and teachings held within these timeless scriptures. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our content if you found it enlightening. Your support helps us bring these summaries to more seekers of knowledge. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and be blessed.